Now we're into the second part of our Declaration of Independence, the grievances against Britain. Grievances against King George III. Vocabulary for understanding. When you're reading any kind of document, whether it be original source or even from a textbook, it's really important that you understand the vocabulary. If you're unfamiliar with any of the words, you're really going to need to stop yourself and grab a dictionary or go online and find out what the definition is of some of these unfamiliar words, so you have a chance of understanding the actual document in context. You may actually run into different punctuation or capitalizations. I did in the original document had capitalizations within the sentence structure. They were a little odd. They were common nouns, but they were capitalized. And my guess is that the founding fathers actually capitalized certain words for emphasis. Here are lists of some of the important vocabulary. So pause the video and please copy this down into your notes. So please pause the video and copy it. A few more words to copy down and make sure that you understand the definition. If you were actually going to be tested on any of this vocabulary, remember the flashcards and baby flashcards, then you can add this to your repertoire of words. Even though I'm not going to define the words of the vocabulary that I just made available to you, I will discuss the actual understanding of the text that we're going to be reading. So let's continue. These are the grievances that are listed. He has refused to assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operations till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. Remember, note-taking categorizes certain ideas so you can remember them more easily. So this is how I took the first three grievances. I put them under laws. Now this is, of course, the colonies are accusing the king of this. He ignores importance of the laws, refuses to sign, and wants the colonists to give up their rights in order for him to sign. The next sections seem to deal with the legislative bodies. Going back to the text, he has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them to compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses and repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of alienation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all dangers of invasions from without and convulsions within. So the complaints of the colonists now say he makes us meet in really distant places and it's uncomfortable. So it's just harassment. He's dissolved our representative houses. He will not allow new elections, and the king is just obstructing the lawmaking by the colonists. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of land. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. So these grievances deal with the king making the judges dependent on the king's ideas. So really, the king turns out to be the judge. And these are my personal notes, so I'm using slang here, messing with the money salaries. So he's messing around with the money that the judges can earn. Also, he has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislature. He has suffered to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they would commit on our inhabitants in the states, for cutting off trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent. Here's the harassment, quartering the British troops. They had to live in the colonists' homes. He cut off American trade worldwide, and he imposed taxes for depriving us, in many cases, of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in the neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. The symbol for no trial by jury, no free system of English law, took away colonial charters, plundered seas, ravished coasts, burned towns. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, dissolution, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled to the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of the civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas, to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrection among us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. It caused domestic unrest and turned the Indians against the colonists. In the document, it says Indians, they were not politically correct at that point for Native Americans. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injuries. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of free people. Nor have we been wanting in attention to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connection and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind. Enemies in war, friends in peace.